After years away, a millionaire returns to his hometown of Manchester to surprise his mother with an unexpected visit. But upon arriving, he finds his mother abandoned on the street in the pouring rain, unaware that her house had been sold. She tells him she was evicted by orders signed by him, or so they said. Overwhelmed by guilt, he decides to confront the truth and reclaim what truly matters. If this story has piqued your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear. The rain lashed mercilessly against the small town of Willow Creek, deep in Georgia. Rachel Oliver, at 68, huddled beneath a makeshift tarp near the wall of the house where she had raised her only son. Her bones ached with the dampness, but what hurt most was seeing her old home locked, with a sold sign fixed to the rusty gate. Her grey hair, once black and shiny, now hung wet over a face marked by time and a hard life. Not far from there, a luxury car slowly navigated the potholed streets of the small town. Behind the wheel was Leo Oliver, 45, CEO of Tech Global, one of the largest technology companies in the United States. Dressed in an impeccable Italian suit, he observed with strangeness the changes time had imposed on the place where he was born. It had been almost 5 years since he last returned to Willow Creek, 5 years without seeing his mother in person. The idea of surprising her had come suddenly. During a late night working in his luxurious New York City office, Leo found an old calendar where he had jotted down Parents' Ruby Anniversary, 42 years. The memory struck him like a punch to the gut. His father, Sebastian, had passed away when Leo was only 10, a victim of a sudden illness, and his mother, Rachel, had dedicated her entire existence to ensure her son became someone in life. How many times have I called her this year? He asked himself, feeling a lump in his throat. The answer was painful, none. His last attempts to make contact always ended with the polite voice of Vanessa, his fiancée, informing him that he was too busy to answer. The car finally reached the old street. Leo parked, grabbed the bouquet of flowers and a small box containing a cake. The same corn and coconut cake his mother always made for birthdays. He smiled, imagining her surprise. But the smile died when he saw the house. The small garden which his mother had cared for so lovingly was abandoned. The lace curtains, which she herself had sewn, were no longer there. The sound of the old sewing machine, which had lulled his entire childhood, had been replaced by an oppressive silence. It was then that he saw her. Huddled against the wall, a fragile figure tried to shield herself from the rain with a piece of plastic. Her eyes, still lively and bright, were the only ones that maintained the dignity that the rest of her body, ravaged by time and neglect, struggled to preserve. "Mom?" Leo's voice came out choked. Rachel slowly raised her eyes as if she couldn't believe it. When she recognized her son, her face transformed. There was surprise, joy, but also a deep suffering Leo had never seen before. "My son, you came." She tried to stand up, but her trembling legs wouldn't allow it. Leo dropped the flowers and the cake onto the muddy ground and ran to support his mother. The rain now soaked his expensive suit, but he didn't care. He embraced that fragile body with desperation. "Mom, what happened? Why are you out here? Where's your house?" The question made Rachel's lips tremble. "They took it from us, son. They said it was your order. That you told them to take me out of here." Leo felt the world spin. "What do you mean? I never—" "The pretty lady, the one who always answers your phone. She came with some men, showed papers with your signature. They said you had sold the house, that I needed to leave." The businessman couldn't believe what he was hearing. Vanessa, his fiancée, had done this? Impossible. There must be some mistake. "When was this, Mom?" 2 months ago. At first, the neighbors took me in, but I didn't want to be a burden. So I come here every day. I keep looking at our house, waiting for you to arrive." Every word was like a knife in Leo's chest. He looked around and noticed some neighbors observing the scene from their windows, with expressions that mixed curiosity and accusation. "Let's get out of this rain. Mom, I need to take care of you." He carried Rachel to the car, covering her with his jacket. She was so light that she seemed like she could break with any sudden movement. As he drove to the only hotel in town, Leo tried to process what was happening. "Did you try to call me? To warn me?" Rachel nodded weakly. "Many times. But the lady always said you were busy in important meetings. After a while, the number wouldn't even connect anymore. The hotel was modest but clean. Leo got the best room available and arranged for dry clothes, food, and a local doctor to examine his mother. While the professional attended to her, he looked out the window at the rain that continued to fall over Willow Creek, feeling a mixture of anger and guilt he had never experienced before. "Mr. Oliver?" The doctor called him, pulling him out of his trance. "Your mother is dehydrated and has early pneumonia. We need to start medication immediately." Another stab. Leo nodded, authorizing all procedures to be carried out. When the doctor left, he approached the bed where Rachel, now clean and medicated, was beginning to fall asleep. "Why, son?" she asked in a weak voice. "What did I do for you to want to send me away from our house?" "I would never do that, Mom, never." He held her hand in his. "Rest now. Tomorrow we'll sort everything out, I promise." When Rachel finally fell asleep, Leo noticed a worn plastic bag beside the bed. Inside were the few belongings his mother had managed to save: some old photos, yellowed documents, and a blue notebook with edges stained by the rain. He recognized the notebook immediately. It was the diary he had given her on the last birthday they spent together, before he moved to New York City. "So you can write your recipes and thoughts," he had said at the time. With trembling hands, Leo opened the diary. His mother's handwriting, once firm and neat, now wavered on the pages, showing the advance of age. He began to read. "It's been 2 years today since Leo came to visit me. I called to congratulate him on the award I saw on television, but the pretty lady said he was in a meeting in China." He turned the page. "I made corn cake today, his favorite. I ended up eating it alone, looking at that graduation photo. How handsome he looked in his gown. First in the family to get a degree." Another page. "Neighbor Mrs. Eleanor showed me a magazine where my Leo appears as one of the most successful businessmen in the country. I cried with pride. But why doesn't he call me anymore? Did I do something wrong?" The lump in Leo's throat grew with each page. The diary was filled with small reflections, memories of his childhood, recipes she liked to prepare for him, and mainly, questions about the reason for his estrangement. The last entries were even more painful. Today they came with a paper saying Leo sold our house. "I can't believe it. This is where we kept our memories, where your father and I built our life. Why, my son, why? I'm sleeping at Mrs. Eleanor's house. I'm ashamed to be a bother, but she insists. Tomorrow I'll try to call Leo again. No one answers my son's phone. Does that lady not give him my messages? Or does my son no longer want to know about me?" The last entry, dated just a week before, brought tears to the businessman's face. "Today I'm going to sleep near home. Who knows, maybe my boy will show up. I have faith that one day he'll come back. Mothers know these things. His heart will call him." Leo closed the notebook, devastated. He looked at his sleeping mother, her face now serene thanks to the medication. How could he have let this happen? How could he have allowed someone, especially someone who claimed to love him, to drive away the most important person in his life? He picked up his cell phone and saw dozens of missed calls from Vanessa. He ignored them all. Instead, he typed a message to his assistant in New York City. "Cancel all my appointments for the next few days. Urgent family matter." Then he called his trusted lawyer. "Dr. Mitchell, I urgently need you to investigate a real estate transaction in Willow Creek, Georgia. A house in Rachel Oliver's name recently sold." He paused, looking at his mother. "And I want to know exactly how my signature appeared on those documents." After hanging up, Leo sat in the armchair beside Rachel's bed. He had a lot to discover, many mistakes to fix. But one thing he already knew: his empire, built with so much sweat, was worth nothing compared to what he had almost lost. Dawn in Willow Creek arrived with a clear sky, contrasting with the storm that had battered the town the night before. Leo woke up in the armchair where he had spent the night, his neck sore and his body tired. But the physical discomfort was insignificant compared to the emotional pain he carried. He looked at his mother, who was still sleeping. The first hours of the morning illuminated her aged face, highlighting every wrinkle, marks of a life of work and sacrifice. Carefully, so as not to wake her, Leo got up and went to the window. The small town was starting its day. Shopkeepers opened their stores, children walked to school, ladies chatted on the sidewalks. Everything seemed so familiar, and at the same time so distant, as if it belonged to another life, one he had deliberately left behind. His phone vibrated in his pocket. It was Dr. Mitchell, his lawyer. He quietly left the room to answer. "Good morning, Leo. I have some preliminary information about the house sale." "Tell me." "The transaction was completed exactly 2 months ago. The documents bear your signature notarized, authorizing Vanessa Prado as your attorney-in-fact to finalize the deal." "Impossible. I never signed that." "Well, there's a broad power of attorney you signed last year, giving her powers to represent you in business matters. Apparently, she used that document as a basis." Leo closed his eyes, remembering. Yes, he had signed a power of attorney for Vanessa to handle corporate matters while he was on a long trip to Asia, but he never imagined she would use it against his own mother. "Keep investigating, Doctor. I want to know who bought the house and how to reverse this immediately." As he hung up, Leo felt the weight of memories return. He remembered when at 12 he helped his father paint that same house. Sebastian Oliver, a simple man, a worker at the local sugar mill, always used to say, "My son, a man's wealth is not in what he has, but in who stands by him when he has nothing." When Sebastian passed away, a victim of a sudden heart condition, Rachel took on the sole responsibility of raising her son. The hands that once only sewed as a hobby now did so out of necessity. She converted the living room into a small atelier, where she mended clothes for neighbors and made custom pieces. The smell of fresh coffee at 5 in the morning and the rattle of the old Singer sewing machine were the soundtrack to Leo's adolescence. Even on the coldest nights, Rachel was there, pedaling the machine, illuminated only by a dim lamp, so that there would be no lack of school supplies, books, or college entrance exam fees. "Mr. Oliver?" The doctor's voice interrupted his recollections. Dr. Paul, who had attended to Rachel the previous night, was back for a follow-up. "I came to see how your mother spent the night. She's still sleeping. Do you think we should wake her?" "And it's not necessary. Her vital signs are good." The doctor examined Rachel carefully. "The medication is working, but she'll need constant care for the next few days." "Her age and the period she spent?" "Well, in adverse conditions severely weakened her system." Leo nodded, feeling the guilt weigh even heavier. "I'll do whatever it takes." When the doctor left, Rachel began to wake slowly. Her eyes, still a little blurry from sleep, scanned the room until they found her son. "Leo?" "It wasn't a dream then." "You really are here?" He approached and sat on the edge of the bed, holding his mother's hand. "I'm here, Mom, and I'm not going anywhere." "Did you read my little notebook?" she asked, noticing the diary on the nightstand. Leo hesitated but decided to be honest. "I did, Mom, and I'm sorry. For everything." Rachel just smiled, with that smile that had always been his safe harbor. "There's nothing to forgive, son. You had your dreams, your life." "I understand." "No, Mom, you don't understand." Leo took a deep breath, fighting back tears. "I never wanted to distance myself. I never wanted you to suffer. And most importantly, I never ever authorized the sale of our house." Rachel's eyes widened. "But then, it was Vanessa. She used a power of attorney I had signed for company matters. She forged documents. She did all this behind my back." A heavy silence settled between them. Finally, Rachel asked him why. "Why would she do that to me?" Leo shook his head, still trying to grasp the extent of the betrayal. "I'm not sure, but I will find out. And I will fix everything, I promise." After breakfast, which Leo made a point of personally fetching from the best bakery in town, they talked for hours. Rachel recounted the past few years, how she tried to call her son almost daily, how she wrote letters that were never answered. "I never received any letters, Mom. I sent dozens. Addressed to that beautiful apartment you showed me in the photos, remember? On 5th Avenue." Leo clenched his fists in anger. More evidence of Vanessa's manipulations. As they talked, knocks on the door interrupted the moment. It was Mrs. Eleanor, the neighbor who had temporarily sheltered Rachel in her home. "Mrs. Rachel, thank goodness. I was worried when I didn't find you this morning." The woman, simple but dignified in appearance, entered the room and only then noticed Leo's presence. Her expression immediately changed. Oh, the prodigal son finally appeared. "Mrs. Eleanor," Rachel gently admonished her. "Sorry, Rachel, but I need to speak." Mrs. Eleanor turned to Leo, years of indignation contained in her gaze. "Do you know how many nights your mother cried for you? Do you know how many times she defended her busy son when everyone else was already saying you had forgotten her? Leo didn't answer, absorbing every word like a deserved blow. And then you send that woman with high heels and a turned-up nose to kick your own mother out of her house? What kind of son does that? I didn't do that, Mrs. Eleanor. Leo finally spoke, his voice low but firm. So I'm just finding out everything that happened now. And I will fix every mistake, every injustice. The elderly woman looked at Rachel, who nodded silently, confirming her son's words. Mrs. Eleanor seemed to consider for a moment, then sighed. Your father would be very disappointed. The words hit Leo like lightning. His father, the upright man who had been his first hero, what would he say if he knew his son had allowed, even indirectly, his wife to end up on the street? Mrs. Eleanor, please, Rachel intervened, seeing her son's devastated expression. Leo didn't know. He's here now, that's what matters. The neighbor's expression softened a little. I brought some of your clothes that were at my house, Rachel. She placed a small bag on the floor. And that blood pressure medicine you take. Thank you, friend. When Mrs. Eleanor left, after extracting a solemn promise from Leo that he would take care of his mother, silence returned to the room. She's right, Mum. Dad would be disappointed in me. Rachel extended her hand to her son, inviting him to sit next to her again. Your father would be proud of the man you've become, Leo, of the success you've achieved, of the intelligence you've always shown. What's the point of all that if I failed at the basics? If I didn't take care of the person who loved me most? Leo held his mother's hands in his, noticing how callous they were after years of working at the sewing machine. You sacrificed everything for me. You didn't eat so I could eat. You spent sleepless nights to pay for my university. And how did I repay you? By distancing myself, by letting them hurt you. You didn't know, son. I should have known. I should have paid more attention. I let success, money, blind me. Leo looked out the window at the simple town that watched him grow up. Remember when I was 15 and wanted those expensive sneakers? You worked overtime for 2 months to buy them. Rachel smiled at the memory. You needed them. Your feet were growing so much that the old ones were already tight. No, Mom, I wanted them, I didn't need them. It was vanity, to impress my school friends. But you never denied me anything that could make me happy. Leo felt the tears return. And do you know what I did when I managed to buy my first luxury car? I sent a photo. A cursed photo instead of coming here picking you up for a ride. Rachel touched her son's face, wiping away a stubborn tear. We were building different lives, son. It's natural. No, it's not. None of this is natural. Leo stood up determined. I'm calling the travel agency right now. As soon as the doctor authorizes it, I'm taking you to New York City. You'll live with me in the best room in the house with all the comfort you deserve. A look of apprehension crossed Rachel's face. And her? Your fiancé won't like that. The mere mention of Vanessa made Leo's blood boil. She's no longer my fiancé. And the house is mine, not hers. You're going where you should have always gone, to be near me. The determination in her son's words reassured Rachel. For an instant she glimpsed in him the stubborn boy he had always been. The one who at 7 swore he would build a castle for her to live in when he grew up. What are you going to do now, son? Leo checked his watch. I'm going to the registry office to check the documents for the house sale. Then I need to talk to some people who can help me understand exactly what happened while I was away. Will you be long? No, Mom. I'll be back for lunch. Rest a little, you're still recovering. Before leaving, Leo opened the bag Mrs. Eleanor had brought. Among the few simple clothes, there was a carved wooden box. He recognized it immediately. It was where his father kept the few important family mementos. He opened it carefully. Inside, besides some old photographs, there was a worn wristwatch, the only valuable object Sebastian possessed, and a carefully folded paper. He unfolded it and recognized his own childlike handwriting, a Father's Day card he had made at school which read, "When I grow up, I will take care of you and Mommy forever." Leo swallowed hard and put the card in his shirt pocket. A forgotten promise that would now be redeemed at any cost. The Willow Creek registry office was small and old-fashioned, with ceiling fans that barely managed to alleviate the morning heat. Sitting before the notary public, a man of about 60, Leo observed the documents spread across the worn wooden table. "It's all legal." "Mr. Oliver," explained Mr. Arthur, adjusting his thick-rimmed glasses. "The power of attorney, gave your fiancé full powers to represent you in real estate transactions. The signature is yours, notarized in a New York City office. But I never authorized the sale of my mother's house." Leo ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. This power of attorney was for specific company matters. Unfortunately, the document doesn't specify limitations. The notary pointed to a paragraph at the bottom of the page. "See here. May buy, sell, transfer properties in my name." It's quite comprehensive. Leo took a deep breath, suppressing his anger. He vaguely remembered signing those papers among dozens of other documents while preparing for a business trip to China. Vanessa had said it was just a formality to resolve pending company issues during his absence. Who bought the house? The notary flipped through a few more documents. A company called VP Enterprises. Cash payment, market value. VP. Vanessa Prado, Leo murmured, connecting the dots. She bought the house through a shell company. Well, I can't confirm that. The notary seemed nervous. But I can. Leo stood up, determined. I'll need copies of all this documentation, and I want to file a formal complaint of fraud. Leaving the registry office with a folder full of documents, Leo decided to walk around town a bit before returning to the hotel. He needed to organize his thoughts, understand how he had allowed his life to reach this point. The streets of Willow Creek awakened memories at every corner. There was the school where he studied until high school. Further on, the square where he played on Sundays. The small grocery store where his mother bought on credit when money ran out before the end of the month. He stopped in front of a vacant lot where an old mechanic shop once stood. It was there at 16 that he got his first job, helping Mr. Joseph fix engines. The old mechanic had been one of the first to notice his aptitude for technology. "This boy wasn't born to stay here," Mr. Joseph would say to anyone who would listen. "He's too smart to settle for little." It was in that workshop that Leo, tinkering with broken computers that customers abandoned, discovered his passion for technology. He studied on his own, spent nights awake disassembling and reassembling devices, creating small programs on an old computer Mr. Joseph had given him. When the news arrived that he had been accepted into the University of New York, the entire small town of Willow Creek celebrated. The seamstress's son, the prodigy boy, was going to the capital to study computer science. Many doubted Rachel would be able to keep her son studying in such an expensive city, but she never wavered. "I'll sew for the entire United States if necessary, but my son will graduate," she would say, determined. Leo smiled at the memory. His mother had kept her promise, working double, saving on everything, so he could dedicate himself exclusively to his studies. And he had repaid her with excellent grades, research scholarships, and finally an internship at one of the country's largest technology companies. His rise was meteoric, from intern to developer, from developer to project manager, and at 35 founder of his own startup, Tech Global, a revolutionary idea for system integration that quickly attracted investors and transformed the market. In just 5 years, Tech Global became a national powerhouse with branches in 3 states and international projects. Leo Oliver, the poor boy from Willow Creek, now graced the covers of business magazines and was invited to lecture at the country's largest universities. Success, however, came at a price. Visits to Willow Creek, once monthly, became semi-annual, then annual, until they practically ceased. Long phone conversations with his mother were replaced by quick messages left with secretaries. Childhood memories, the values Rachel and Sebastian had taught him, were gradually buried under layers of commitments, meetings, and the growing pursuit of the next big deal. And then, 3 years ago, Vanessa entered his life. She appeared at a technology event representing an investment firm. Beautiful, intelligent, articulate, seductive. She approached offering a business partnership and ended up conquering much more. Leo, always reserved when it came to relationships, found himself completely involved with this woman who seemed to perfectly complement his professional life. "You need someone who understands your world," Vanessa would say in the first weeks of their relationship. "Someone who speaks the same language, who can be your partner in every sense." And so it was. In a short time, Vanessa was not only his girlfriend but also a constant presence at Tech Global. First as an informal consultant, then gradually taking on an increasingly central role in the business. She had an opinion on everything: expansion strategies, hires, investments. Leo was so immersed in the relationship that he didn't realize when Vanessa began to control other aspects of his life. His circle of friends, his schedule, his communications, even his relationship with his mother. "Your mother called again," she would say with a sigh of apparent weariness. "I told her you're in an important meeting. She needs to understand that you have a company to manage. You can't be taking personal calls all the time." He believed he was protecting Rachel by keeping her out of the complexities of his new life. "My mother is a simple woman," he justified to himself. "She wouldn't understand the pressures, the demands of the corporate world." What an idiot he had been. Now, walking the streets of his hometown, Leo realized with painful clarity how he had allowed pride and ambition to cloud his vision. How he had allowed a manipulative woman to come between him and the person who had loved him most unconditionally. He stopped in front of a simple bar on the corner. He recognized the middle-aged man cleaning the tables, Charlie Albert, his childhood friend. They started school together, shared notebooks when supplies were scarce, played on the same amateur soccer team in town. But they hadn't spoken in years. "Charlie?" he called hesitantly. The man looked up, surprised. After a moment of recognition, his face hardened. "Well, look who's back." The big businessman remembered Willow Creek exists. Leo felt the weight of the accusation, but didn't back down. "Can I sit down?" "We need to talk." Charlie pointed to a table in the corner. "Coffee?" "Please." While his friend prepared the coffee, Leo observed the modest but clean and well-kept bar. On the walls, some old photos of the town. In one of them, he recognized a group of teenagers in school uniform, their high school graduation. He and Charlie were there, smiling, full of dreams. So, Charlie placed 2 cups on the table and sat down. "What brings the illustrious son of Willow Creek back to the old stomping grounds? Did you come to buy the rest of the town?" "I came to see my mother." "And I found her homeless, Charlie, on the street." His friend's face immediately changed. Hostility gave way to confusion. "What do you mean?" "Mrs. Rachel had been living with Mrs. Eleanor for a few weeks, ever since—" He stopped, embarrassed. "Ever since she was evicted from her own home. By my fiancé using my name." Leo took a sip of coffee, trying to control his emotion. "But I knew nothing about it, Charlie. I swear to God I knew nothing." His friend studied his face for a long moment, as if assessing the sincerity of his words. "I always thought it was strange. Knowing Mrs. Rachel, knowing you, it didn't make sense. When was the last time you saw my mother before this?" Charlie thought for a bit. "About 3 months ago. She came here to the bar, showed a magazine where you appeared. She was so proud. Said you promised to visit her on her birthday." Leo frowned. "I never promised that. I haven't even spoken to her in months." "Well, that's what she said. That she got a call from you that you were planning a surprise." "It wasn't me, Charlie. It was Vanessa." The revelation dropped like a stone between them. She had been interfering with our communication for a long time. Blocking calls, hiding letters. Now I understand she was preparing the ground for what she would do next. But why? What's her interest in harming Mrs. Rachel? "Control, power." Leo clenched his fists on the table. "And shame of my origins. Vanessa comes from a traditional New York City family, always made it clear that she considered my history, my roots, as something to be hidden. Your past doesn't match your present, she would say." Charlie shook his head, incredulous. "And you allowed that? Allowed her to belittle where you came from, who you are?" The question hit Leo hard. "I didn't realize what was happening, Charlie. I was blind, obsessed with success, with the appearance of perfection we built together." He ran his hands over his face, tired. "What kind of man have I become? What kind of son?" His friend watched him for a moment, then softened his expression. "The kind who can still fix his mistakes." He placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. "What do you plan to do now?" "Get my mother's house back. Take her with me to New York City. Give her the comfort she deserves. And settle accounts with Vanessa." Charlie nodded, approving the plan. "And what about your company? Your businesses?" The question made Leo reflect. For years, Tech Global had been the center of his universe, his greatest achievement. But now, confronted with the human cost of his unrestrained ambition, priorities seemed to realign naturally. "The company can wait. I have competent executives who can manage it for a while. Now my priority is my mother." They talked for some more time. Charlie spoke about life in town, about how Rachel always spoke proudly of her son, even when neighbors began to question his distance. She never let anyone speak ill of you, you know. She always defended you. As they said goodbye, his old friend made a final comment. You know what Mrs. Rachel once told me? That no matter how long you stayed away, one day your heart would call you back home. Looks like she was right, back. At the hotel, Leo found Rachel sitting in an armchair near the window, leafing through her old diary. She seemed stronger today, with a little more color in her face. Did you manage to sort everything out, son? Not yet, Mum, but I'm on my way. He sat down opposite her. When you're better, we're going to New York City. I'm going to take care of you the way you always took care of me. Rachel smiled, a smile full of hope but also apprehension. And what will happen to our house? To our memories? Leo held his mother's hands. I'm going to get it back, Mum. And then you decide what you want to do, stay here or come with me. The important thing is that we'll be together from now on. Leo's cell phone vibrated insistently in his pocket. On the screen, Vanessa's name flashed. It was time for the confrontation that could no longer be postponed. Leo stared at his cell phone for a few seconds before answering. Vanessa's name on the screen now caused a feeling of repulsion he had never imagined feeling. I need to answer, Mum. It's her. Rachel nodded, gently squeezing her son's hand in support. Leo went out into the hotel corridor and finally slid his finger across the screen. Where are you? Vanessa's voice sounded controlled, but with an underlying tension he knew well. You cancelled all your appointments. You're not answering my calls. You disappear without warning. Investors are worried. I'm in Willow Creek. Leo kept his voice low, containing the rage that boiled within him. With my mother. A brief silence on the other end of the line. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice was laced with artificial sweetness. Leo, darling, what a wonderful surprise. Why didn't you tell me? We would have prepared something special for your mother. How is she? The falsehood was so evident that Leo almost laughed. She's recovering, Vanessa, from pneumonia, from the days she spent sleeping on the street, in the rain. After you kicked her out of her own house using my name. Another silence, longer this time. Leo could almost see Vanessa's calculating mind working, assessing how much he already knew, formulating explanations, excuses. I don't know what you're talking about. Her voice shifted to a defensive tone. Your mother was living in precarious conditions in that old house. I merely suggested a move to a better place, more appropriate for her age. If she chose not to accept our help, it's not my fault. Stop lying. Leo raised his voice, then controlled himself, remembering he was in the hotel corridor. You forged my signature, fraudulently used a power of attorney, bought the house through a shell company and had my mother forcibly evicted. Leo, you're being irrational. I came personally to this horrible little town to help your mother. I offered an apartment, money, everything she needed to live comfortably. But that stubborn old woman... Don't you dare speak about my mother like that. Leo's tone was icy now. I have all the evidence, Vanessa. The registry office documents, witnesses who saw you here with your representatives, the testimony of the very owner of the real estate agency that brokered the sale. The facade began to crumble. Vanessa's voice lost its artificial sweetness, taking on a harsher, more calculating tone, her true nature. It was for your own good, Leo, for our future. That woman and that town are symbols of your past, of what you overcame. Do you think your investors, your business partners, would respect you if they knew your mother is an uneducated seamstress from a town in the middle of nowhere? My mother is not uneducated. Indignation made it difficult to control his voice. She studied until high school, read to me every night, taught me the value of education. Details. Vanessa dismissed the fact with disdain. The point is that your public image, which we built so carefully, doesn't accommodate that kind of origin. I was protecting you. Leo closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. How far had he allowed himself to stray from his values to satisfy that woman? I'm returning to New York City tomorrow, with my mother. I want you and your things out of my apartment when I arrive. You can't be serious. Vanessa's tone now wavered between disbelief and anger. You're going to throw away everything we built, all our future, because of a misunderstanding with an old woman. That old woman is the woman who sacrificed everything for me, Vanessa. And what did we build together? An empire based on lies, manipulations, and shame of my origins. You're being dramatic, Leo. Let's talk in person when you get back. I'm sure that there's nothing to talk about. It's over. Leo felt a strange sense of relief as he said these words. And as for my mother's house, I'm filing a fraud lawsuit. Unless you undo the sale immediately. A cutting silence followed. When Vanessa finally spoke, her voice was laced with a menacing coldness. You'll regret this. Leo, I know things about your business, about Tech Global's operations. That could cause a lot of problems if they become public. The threat was clear. Vanessa had access to sensitive company information, some legal, others not so much. Decisions made in the gray area of business ethics, agreements made under pressure, documents that, out of context, could be problematic. Do what you think you have to do, Vanessa. I will not negotiate my mother's happiness. He hung up without waiting for a response. He knew he had declared war, and that Vanessa was not the type of person to accept defeat easily. But for the first time in many years, he felt he was doing the right thing regardless of the consequences. Returning to the room, he found Rachel arranging her few clothes in the small bag. She turned at the sound of the door, her face marked by worry. Son, I heard your voice change. Is everything okay? Leo smiled, trying to reassure her. It will be, Mom, I promise. That night, after Rachel fell asleep, Leo called Michael, his financial director at Tech Global, one of the few executives in the company he fully trusted. Michael, I need you to conduct a complete audit of all company operations over the last 3 years. All contracts signed, all transactions authorized by me or Vanessa. Any problems, Leo? I don't know yet. But I want to be prepared for anything. He paused, considering how to explain the situation. Vanessa and I broke up, and it wasn't amicable. She made threats related to the company. Michael let out a long sigh. I always knew she was trouble. I never understood why you gave her so much power within Tech Global. I was blind, Michael. But now I'm seeing clearly. The next morning, the doctor discharged Rachel with recommendations for rest and continued medication. Leo had already arranged everything. Tickets to New York City on a private flight, so his mother could travel with the maximum possible comfort. Before they left, however, he had one last stop to make in Willow Creek. He took a taxi to a secluded neighborhood where the town's only law office was located. Dr. Stephen Miller was an elderly lawyer who had known his family for decades. Leo Oliver. Long time no see, my boy. The lawyer greeted him with a warm embrace. I heard you're taking Mrs. Rachel to the capital. Excellent decision. Thank you, Dr. Stephen, but before we go, I need your help with a delicate matter. Over the next hour, Leo explained the situation, showing the documents he had collected at the registry office. The lawyer listened attentively, making occasional notes. It's a clear case of fraud, Dr. Stephen concluded, adjusting his glasses. Improper use of power of attorney, forgery of signature, establishment of a company with the sole purpose of concealing the true buyer. We have a solid case. How long would a lawsuit like this take? Years, probably. Justice in the United States is not known for its speed. Leo shook his head. I don't have years, Doctor. My mother needs peace now. Well, there's another option. The lawyer leaned across the table. We can use all this evidence to pressure the buyer to undo the deal voluntarily. A direct transfer back to Mrs. Rachel, without lawsuits, without publicity. Do you think that would work? Depends on how much this person has to lose from a public scandal. Dr. Stevens smiled. From what you've told me about your ex-fiancée, I'd say she has a lot to lose. Leo agreed. Vanessa had carefully built her image in the New York City business world. Her scandal involving fraud and the eviction of her client's elderly mother would be devastating to her reputation and career. Prepare the documents, Doctor. I'll contact her as soon as I arrive in New York City. Back at the hotel, he found Rachel ready for the trip, wearing a simple but dignified outfit that Mrs. Eleanor had brought. His friend was also there to say goodbye, along with Charlie and some other neighbors who had helped Rachel in difficult times. We'll miss you, Rachel, Mrs. Eleanor said, hugging her friend. But I know your son will take good care of you. And if he doesn't, we'll go all the way to New York City to give him a piece of our mind, Charlie joked, drawing smiles from everyone. On the way to the small regional airport, Leo made one last stop. He parked the rental car in front of the old family home. Rachel looked out the window, her eyes welling up. Can I take one last look? Of course, Mom. In fact, Leo smiled, pulling a set of keys from his pocket. I got these from the real estate agency. The house hasn't been occupied or modified yet. Rachel's eyes widened. We can go in? For a few minutes. The taxi to the airport arrives in half an hour. They walked together to the gate. The house was simple, 3 small bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a backyard where Sebastian used to grow a small vegetable garden. But every inch of that space was impregnated with memories, with family history. Rachel walked slowly through the empty rooms, touching the walls, looking through the windows at the backyard where Leo played as a child. In her and Sebastian's old bedroom, she stopped in front of a mark on the wall. Remember this, son? Leo approached. It was a series of horizontal lines marking a child's height over the years. Dad measured my height every birthday, he recalled, feeling emotion tighten his throat. He was so proud of you. He said you would be a giant. Rachel smiled, touching the last mark, made when Leo was 15. And he wasn't wrong. In what had been Leo's room, the walls still showed traces of old posters, lighter rectangular patches, where the sun hadn't faded the paint as much as elsewhere. He remembered each one. Soccer players, rock bands, and later, figures like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, his technological idols from adolescence. In the kitchen, the empty space where the table used to be, where they ate meals together, the corner where the old sewing machine worked tirelessly in Rachel's skilled hands. I'm going to get our house back, Mum, I promise. Rachel held her son's arm, looking at him serenely. Don't worry so much about the house, Leo. It's important, yes, it holds our memories. But what really matters is that we're together again. On the way to the airport, Leo remained silent, absorbing everything that had happened in the last 2 days. The discovery of Vanessa's betrayal, the state in which he had found his mother, the resurrected memories from revisiting the places of his childhood. He felt like someone awakening from a long trance. For years he had pursued success, recognition, power, convinced that these achievements would fill the void he felt. But the more he achieved, the emptier he became. Now, with his mother by his side, humble and loving as always, he realized that the true meaning of life was there, in genuine connections, in unconditional love, in the integrity of his roots. What are you thinking about, son? Rachel asked, noticing his pensive expression. About how I got lost, Mom, and about how I'm finding myself again. The small private plane took off, leaving behind the peaceful Willow Creek. Ahead, New York City awaited them, with its skyscrapers, its frantic pace, its opportunities and challenges. But now Leo would face it all with a new perspective, and with his greatest strength beside him, his mother's love. What he didn't know yet was that Vanessa was already preparing her counterattack, and that the battle for redemption was just beginning. The private jet landed at LaGuardia Airport at dusk. New York City welcomed mother and son with an orange sky, cut by the outlines of skyscrapers that stretched as far as the eye could see. For Rachel, who had only visited the capital twice, the landscape still caused awe. It's so big, so noisy, she commented, as the car Leo had arranged crossed the city. How do you not get lost here, my son? He smiled. You get used to it over time. But I confess that sometimes I miss the silence of Willow Creek. The vehicle drove down Fifth Avenue, the financial heart of the city, then entered an upscale neighborhood, with tree-lined streets and luxurious buildings. It stopped in front of an imposing building with a mirrored glass facade and a uniformed doorman who immediately recognized Leo. Good evening, Mr. Oliver. Welcome back. Thank you, Anthony. This is my mother, Mrs. Rachel. She'll be living with me from now on. The doorman smiled respectfully. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Rachel. You are very welcome. As he opened the door to the penthouse, however, Leo immediately realized something was wrong. The lights were on, classical music played softly, and an expensive perfume aroma hung in the air. Vanessa, he murmured, tense. As if invoked by his name, the woman appeared in the entrance hall. She was impeccably dressed, as always, in a light grey executive suit that highlighted her elegant silhouette. Her perfectly styled blonde hair framed a face with delicate features that now displayed a calculated smile. Leo. Darling, finally. Her gaze quickly passed over Rachel, with a glint of disdain before returning to the businessman. I've prepared a welcome dinner. I imagine you're famished after your trip. Leo stood firm, protecting his mother with his body. "What are you doing here, Vanessa? I asked you to leave." She made a dismissive gesture with her hand as if brushing off a trivial observation. "I thought you'd be calmer after the trip, that we could talk like adults." Her smile widened as she addressed Rachel. "Mrs. Rachel, how are you? You look much better than—" She hesitated, searching for words. "Than the last time we saw each other." Rachel, who had remained silent until then, took a step forward. There was dignity in her posture, a quiet strength that surprised both Leo and Vanessa. "I am much better, yes, young lady. Especially now that I can look into the eyes of the person who tried to destroy the relationship between me and my son." The coldness in Vanessa's gaze intensified. Always so dramatic. It's no wonder Leo needed to distance himself to build something significant in life. "Enough." Leo stepped forward, rage pulsing in his veins. "You have no right to speak to my mother like that, especially in my house after everything you've done." "Your house?" Vanessa laughed, a melodious sound but empty of warmth. "Half the furniture here was chosen by me. The artwork, the decor, everything has my touch. Even your suits, I chose them. I molded your life, Leo. I transformed a talented but clumsy programmer into a respected CEO. You owe me that." "I owe you nothing." On the contrary, Leo kept his voice controlled despite the growing anger. "You abused my trust, manipulated my life, alienated me from my family. And you still had the audacity to kick my mother out of her own house. That was a favor." Vanessa finally lost her composure. "That dilapidated house in that run-down neighborhood, do you think that's appropriate for the mother of someone of your caliber? I offered better alternatives, an apartment downtown, a luxury nursing home. But she refused everything." Rachel took another step forward, her eyes fixed on Vanessa. "I refused because I didn't want anything from you, because I saw in your eyes from the first day that you didn't love my son. You loved what he represented, the power, the money, the status." Vanessa turned to her, her lips trembling with suppressed anger. "And you? What did you bring to his life besides a shameful past, an origin he needs to hide? Do you know how many times I had to invent stories about Leo's family at social events? 'My parents passed away,' was what he said because he couldn't admit that his mother was an uneducated seamstress from a small town." "I never said that," Leo protested, horrified. "I never denied my origins. I was never ashamed of my mother. Those were your words, your lies." A tense silence hung between them. Rachel looked from one to the other, comprehension finally crystallizing in her gaze. "I understand now," she said softly. "You poisoned my son's heart against me. You made him believe I was a burden, a shame. You made him distance himself from his roots, from everything that made him who he is." "I did what was necessary." Vanessa regained her composure, adjusting her blazer with precise gestures. "To protect Leo's public image, to ensure he reached his full potential. And it worked. He's at the top now, respected, admired. If the price of that was leaving the past behind, it was a small price to pay." Leo felt a sudden clarity, as if all the pieces of a puzzle finally fit together. "You never loved me, did you? I was just a project, an investment. The poor, talented boy you could mold, control, use for your own ends." A cold smile curved Vanessa's lips. "Love is overrated, darling. Strategic partnership is what really matters in the business world, and we formed an excellent partnership. We still can if you put aside this foolish sentimentality. Get out of my house." Leo's voice was low but filled with unwavering determination. "Now!" Vanessa crossed her arms, defiant. "Or what? You'll sue me? Expose our private lives to public scrutiny? Think of the consequences, Leo. I know things about you, about Tech Global, that could destroy everything you've built. Don't threaten me." Leo stood firm. "I've dealt with people like you my entire life. People who think they can buy everything, including principles, who use power and money to manipulate others. I grew up fighting against that, and I won't stop now." "You're making a terrible mistake." Vanessa picked up her bag, maintaining her dignity despite the imminent defeat. "When this outburst of nostalgia and guilt passes, you'll realize how much you need me." "I don't need you." "I never did." Leo opened the door, indicating the exit. "Your things will be sent wherever you specify. My lawyer will contact you to formalize our breakup, both personal and professional." Vanessa walked towards the door but stopped in front of Rachel. For an instant, the two women stared at each other. one in her elegant designer outfit, the other in simple but dignified clothes. Two realities, two worlds that should never have collided. "You may have won this battle," Vanessa whispered to Rachel, low enough for only her to hear, "but your son belongs to my world now. And sooner or later he'll realize that." "My son belongs to the world he himself builds," Rachel replied, serene, "and I pray it's a better one than yours." When the door finally closed behind Vanessa, Leo felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He embraced his mother, holding her tightly, as if fearing she might disappear again. "Forgive me, Mom, for letting this happen?" "There's nothing to forgive, son. You were as much a victim as I was." In the days that followed, Leo reorganized his life. He designated a spacious and comfortable room for Rachel, with a view of the nearby park. He brought only the essentials from Tech Global, delegating responsibilities to spend more time with his mother. As he had predicted, Vanessa did not give up easily. First came the legal threats, letters from expensive lawyers, claiming rights to properties, company shares, compensation for services rendered. Leo faced each one with the help of his legal team, without yielding an inch. Then came the attempts to tarnish his reputation. Rumors about dubious practices at Tech Global began to circulate in the market. Clients received anonymous emails questioning the integrity of the company and its founder. Investors were approached with privileged information about alleged financial problems. "She won't give up easily," Michael commented during an emergency meeting at the company. "We need to counterattack." "No," Leo was firm. "We won't stoop to her level. We will maintain our integrity, our transparency. The truth always prevails." The strategy worked for the most part. Clients who had known Leo for years remained loyal. Investors, after independent analyses, confirmed the company's solidity. The storm seemed to be passing when a new attack emerged, this time directly aimed at Rachel. One afternoon, while Leo was at the company, Rachel received an unexpected visit. Two men in suits, identifying themselves as court officers, presented a document alleging that she was illegally occupying the penthouse, which supposedly belonged to Vanessa. "My son owns this apartment," Rachel explained. Confused. "Madam, we have a court order. Either you leave voluntarily, or we will have to remove you by force," insisted one of the men with false kindness. Fortunately, the housekeeper Leo had hired was present and immediately called him. Leo arrived in record time, accompanied by his lawyer, and discovered that the men were imposters hired by Vanessa. The document, a crude forgery, had no legal value. "This is a crime," Leo's lawyer warned as the fake officers retreated. "We will file a formal complaint." The incident deeply shook Rachel. For the first time since she arrived in New York City, Leo saw her truly frightened. "She won't stop, son," Rachel whispered that night as they drank tea on the balcony. "That woman is dangerous." "Don't worry, Mom, I'm taking all legal precautions. No one will take you from me again." The next day, Leo made a decision. He called a press conference with the country's main media outlets. It was time to tell his story, to expose the truth, not just about Vanessa, but about his origins, his journey, his values. "Are you sure about this?" his public relations manager asked, concerned. "Exposing your personal life this way can have unpredictable consequences." "I am. The only way to fight lies is with the truth." Tech Global's auditorium was packed. Journalists from all over the country, curious about what the enigmatic CEO had to say, waited anxiously. Beside Leo on stage, to everyone's surprise, was Rachel, simple, dignified, a little nervous, but determined to support her son. "We appreciate everyone's presence," Leo began. "I called this press conference to clarify some facts about my personal and professional life that have been distorted recently." He looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly, then turned back to the reporters. "My name is Leo Oliver. I was born in Willow Creek, a small town in rural Georgia. My father was a worker at a sugar mill, my mother a seamstress. I grew up in a simple house without luxuries, but with much love and solid values." He paused, emotion evident in his voice. "I lost my father early. My mother, Mrs. Rachel, who is by my side today, raised me alone. She worked day and night so I could study, so I could have opportunities that she and my father never had. Every cent I invested in my education, every book I read, every dream I realized, I owe to her." The room was in absolute silence. all eyes fixed on the man who, for the first time, was publicly opening his heart. I founded Tech Global with the principles I learned from her: honesty, hard work, respect. And for a time, I let success distance me from those values. I allowed people with ulterior motives to approach me, manipulate my life, distance me from my roots. Leo then recounted, without mentioning names, how his ex-fiancée had interfered between him and his mother, how she had used fraudulent means to evict her from her home, how she had tried to erase his past in the name of a more appropriate public image. I discovered all this 2 weeks ago, when I returned to Willow Creek and found my mother homeless, sick, abandoned. A woman who gave everything for me, reduced to misery by someone who claimed to love me. Cameras flashed, journalists scribbled frantically. The story was explosive, the kind of narrative that captures the public's imagination. I am here today not only to clarify the facts, but to reaffirm who I am. I am the son of Sebastian and Rachel Oliver, born and raised in rural Georgia. I am a man who built a company from scratch, with honest work. I am someone who made mistakes, who strayed from his values, but who is determined to correct them. He looked again at Rachel, whose eyes shone with suppressed tears. And I am, above all, a son who owes everything to his mother, who promises here and now never again to forget where he came from and to whom he owes his existence. The press conference lasted almost 2 hours, with Leo answering questions about his life, his company, his plans for the future. Rachel remained by his side, silent but present, a living symbol of the story he was telling. When it finally ended, mother and son left the auditorium hand in hand under the incessant flash of cameras. A powerful image that, they didn't know yet, would grace the covers of newspapers and magazines the next day, moving the entire country. In the car on the way home, Rachel held her son's hand tightly. "I'm proud of you, my boy. Your father would be too." Leo smiled, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. The battle wasn't won. He knew Vanessa would still try to retaliate, that there would be consequences for his public exposure. But for the first time in a long time, he was sure he was on the right path. His cell phone rang. It was Michael, calling to inform him that Dr. Stephen, the lawyer from Willow Creek, had just sent important news. Rachel's house had been legally returned to her name. VP Enterprises, Vanessa's shell company, had relinquished all rights to the property. "I think your ex-fiancée realized that public opinion was against her," Michael commented. "Or maybe she finally found a shred of decency." Leo doubted the second option, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that his mother had regained her home, her memories, her dignity. "Mom," he said, hanging up the phone, "I have wonderful news." 6 months had passed since the press conference that transformed Leo Oliver from a reserved businessman into a national symbol of reconnection with his roots. The story of the billionaire CEO who found his mother homeless and abandoned everything to care for her captured the country's imagination, going viral on social media and inspiring special reports in all major media outlets. Tech Global, against all expectations, did not suffer from the exposure. On the contrary, clients, investors, and business partners admired the honesty and humanity of its founder. The company's shares, after a brief initial drop, soared to their highest historical value. The Leo effect, as the press dubbed it, showed that integrity and transparency could indeed be values compatible with business success. As for Vanessa, the consequences were severe. After Rachel's house was returned, she tried to maintain appearances, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But public opinion had already turned against her. One by one, her contacts in the corporate world distanced themselves. Invitations to events and board directorships were quietly cancelled. Within weeks, the woman who once moved with ease through New York City's most exclusive circles became a social pariah. The final blow came when an independent investigation, requested by one of Tech Global's investors, discovered that Vanessa had attempted to divert company funds to personal overseas accounts. With irrefutable evidence of her illicit activities, she had no choice but to quietly leave the country to escape criminal prosecution. For Leo, however, these developments were secondary. His absolute priority in those months was to rebuild his relationship with Rachel and honor the promise he had made publicly. On a particularly sunny Saturday morning, Mother and son walked through Central Park. Rachel, visibly healthier and revitalized, wore a simple but elegant outfit that Leo had insisted on buying for her. "I still think it's an exaggeration to spend so much on clothes," she commented, adjusting the scarf that protected her hair from the wind. "But I confess it's nice to feel pretty once in a while." Leo smiled. It had been a constant battle in recent months, convincing his mother to accept small luxuries, to allow herself some comfort after a lifetime of sacrifices. "You deserve this and much more." "Mom, besides," he winked mischievously, "I need to maintain the reputation of a devoted son that the press gave me." Rachel lightly patted his arm. "Silly, as if you needed to prove anything to anyone." They sat on a bench near the lake, watching the ducks swim peacefully. It was a moment of peace that contrasted sharply with the turbulence of the previous months. "Son, I need to tell you something," Rachel began, with a seriousness that immediately caught Leo's attention. "I'm very happy here with you, but..." Leo felt a tightening in his chest. "Is something wrong? Are you not comfortable in the apartment?" "No, it's not that. Your apartment is wonderful, and you've been the most attentive son in the world." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "It's just that I miss Willow Creek. My house, my neighbors, my routine." Leo nodded slowly, understanding. In recent weeks, he had noticed how his mother gazed at photos of the old house for a long time, how she frequently mentioned her friends there, the small traditions of the town. "You want to go back?" It wasn't a question, but a statement. Rachel held her son's hand. "I do, but only if you understand. I don't want you to think I don't value everything you've done for me. It's just that..." "That's your place," Leo completed, smiling softly. "I understand, Mum. In fact, I've been thinking about it too." He took an envelope from his pocket and handed it to Rachel. Inside were photos of the old house in Willow Creek, but not as she had left it. The images showed the house completely renovated, new roof, facade painted in a soft shade of blue, Rachel's favorite color, garden replanted with the flowers she had always loved. "I hired a team to restore it," Leo explained, while his mother examined the photos with tear-filled eyes. "But I kept everything as it was before, just modernized it. The kitchen has new equipment. The bathroom was enlarged. I installed air conditioning in all the rooms. And look at this." He pointed to a photo showing a spacious room at the back of the house, with a large window facing the garden. In the center of the room, a modern industrial sewing machine, surrounded by shelves with colorful fabrics, mannequins, and all the equipment a seamstress could dream of. "Your new atelier," he said, observing his mother's surprised expression. "For when you decide to go back to sewing, if you want, of course. No pressure." Rachel hugged her son tightly, unable to hold back her tears. "It's perfect, Leo, simply perfect." That night, as they had dinner in the penthouse, they discussed the details of the move. Rachel would return to Willow Creek the following week, but she wouldn't be alone. Leo had hired a companion, a retired nurse who lived in a neighboring town and could help her with daily life, as well as monitor her health. "And I'll install a communication system so we can see and talk to each other every day," he explained. "Plus, I'll be there personally at least once a month." "But what about your work? The company?" Rachel seemed worried. "Tech Global will survive without my constant presence," Leo smiled. "In fact, I'm reorganizing the entire management structure to be able to work remotely more frequently." What Leo didn't mention was an even more significant decision he had recently made: the opening of an educational technology center in Willow Creek, the first of a network he planned to expand throughout the rural areas of the country. "The United States is full of talented young people who don't have access to quality education," he had explained to Tech Global's board of directors. "How many potential programming geniuses are lost in small towns without opportunities, just as I would be if my mother hadn't sacrificed so much." The project, named Technological Roots, would be inaugurated in 3 months, a surprise he kept to reveal to his mother at the right moment. On the morning of Rachel's departure for Willow Creek, Leo woke up early to supervise the final preparations. While his mother finished getting ready, he went to his office and opened the desk drawer. There it was, carefully preserved, the blue notebook, the diary he had found among Rachel's few belongings in that Willow Creek hotel 6 months ago. With his mother's consent, Leo had digitized those precious pages. Rachel's simple but profound words, her thoughts, her hopes and pains, had become his moral guide. his constant reminder of what truly mattered in life. The doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of the driver, who would take Rachel to the airport. Leo put the diary away and went to meet his mother in the living room. "Ready to go home?" Rachel smiled, radiant. "Yes, but with a very important difference. Now I know I'm not losing a son. I'm gaining one back." The trip to the airport was smooth. During the journey, Rachel told stories about Leo's childhood that he himself had already forgotten. Small mischiefs, moments of shared joy, the first manifestations of his intelligence and curiosity. "Remember when you took apart your father's radio to see how it worked?" He was so angry, so Rachel laughed at the memory. "But then, when you managed to put it back together and it worked better than before, your father spent the whole week telling his friends about the genius he had at home." Leo smiled, recalling the pride in his father's eyes. A simple man who had never completed elementary school, but who possessed a natural wisdom, an innate sense of justice and dignity that Leo hoped he had inherited. In the airport lounge, Leo ensured Rachel was comfortable in the VIP room, while staff prepared for boarding the private jet he had arranged. "This is an exaggeration." "Son," she protested, looking around the luxurious environment. "I could very well go on a commercial flight." "No way. My mother deserves the best." Rachel shook her head, but there was a smile on her lips. "Be careful not to spoil me. Soon I'll be demanding caviar for breakfast." They both laughed, knowing that was practically impossible. Despite the months in New York City, Rachel remained the same simple and grounded woman as always. The small luxuries she accepted were more to please her son than for her own desire. When the boarding announcement came, Leo accompanied his mother to the tarmac, where the jet awaited. He hugged her for a long time, feeling a mixture of emotions: sadness at the separation, joy at seeing her happy, and a deep sense of gratitude for having her back in his life. "I'll be there next week, Mom, and if anything, you have my number. I'll answer any time." "I promise." "I know that, son." Rachel held Leo's face in her hands, as she used to when he was a child. "I'm so proud of the man you've become, not for your material success, but for your heart, for your integrity." With a final embrace, Rachel boarded the plane. Leo remained on the tarmac, watching until the jet took off and disappeared into the horizon. He felt strangely light, as if an important cycle in his life had been completed. 3 months later, Leo was back in Willow Creek, but this time he was not alone. A delegation of executives, journalists, and local authorities accompanied him for the inauguration of the Sebastian Oliver Educational Technology Center, named in honor of his father. The center occupied a large plot of land on the outskirts of the town. The main building, modern but harmoniously integrated with the local architecture, housed computer labs, classrooms, an auditorium, and an incubator for local startups. Beside it, a community square with free Wi-Fi and social areas completed the complex. Rachel was in the front row during the inauguration ceremony, beaming with pride as Leo spoke about the importance of democratizing access to technology, of valuing talent from all regions of the country, of building a more just and inclusive United States. "This center is not just a business project," he concluded, moved. "It is a thank you to this town that saw me born, to these people who taught me the values I carry to this day. And above all, it is a tribute to my parents, Sebastian, who left us too soon, and Rachel, who sacrificed everything so that I could realize my dreams." The applause was deafening. After the speech, as he circulated among the guests, Leo noticed something special. The young students already selected for the center's first class looked at him not only with admiration, but with a glimmer of possibility in their eyes, as if thinking, if he made it coming from where he came from, maybe I can too. That was exactly the effect he hoped to create. He didn't want to be adored as an unattainable exception, but to serve as living proof that barriers, no matter how high they seem, can be overcome. Later that day, after the official events, Leo and Rachel walked together to the old family home, now completely restored and once again inhabited by her. "Want to see something special?" Rachel asked with a mysterious smile. She led him to the atelier at the back of the house. The space, which Leo had equipped with state-of-the-art technology, was in full operation. Colorful fabrics covered the tables, designs and patterns were scattered everywhere, and the industrial sewing machine showed signs of constant use. You've gone back to sewing, Leo exclaimed, happy with the discovery. Yes, but not just for mending like before. Rachel proudly showed a rack with several beautiful pieces of clothing, all handmade. I started a small collection. The girls from town help me. I'm teaching them the craft. That's wonderful, Mom. And look at this. She opened a folder where she kept newspaper and magazine clippings. After that press conference of yours, some fashion journalists contacted me. They were interested in my story and my creations. Among the clippings, Leo recognized reports from renowned women's magazines, with titles like Rachel, Oliver, the seamstress who inspired an empire, and From the Hands That Sewed Dreams, the story behind Leo Oliver's success. You're famous, he joked. Nonsense, Rachel dismissed the comment with a gesture but couldn't hide her pride. But I confess it's good to be recognized for my own work, not just as someone's mother. They went out to the backyard, where the old garden had been restored and expanded. They sat on a bench under the shade of a mango tree, the same one Sebastian had planted when Leo was born, and which now bore huge, juicy fruits. You know, son, Rachel said, contemplating the sky that was beginning to show the first stars. When you were little and your father was still alive, we used to sit out here on summer nights. He would point to the stars and say that each one was a possible dream, waiting to be realized. Leo nodded, vaguely remembering those moments. And you had dreams for me, didn't you? Then we did. We wanted you to be educated, honest, hard-working. To have opportunities we didn't have. She paused, smiling at her son. But you surpassed all our dreams, Leo, not just for what you achieved materially, but for the man you became. Rachel took something from her pocket, a small object wrapped in a handkerchief. She carefully unwrapped it, revealing Sebastian's old wristwatch. Your father wanted you to have this when you were a grown man. I think now is the right time. Leo took the watch with reverence. It was a simple object, with a leather strap worn by time but laden with meaning. He put it on his wrist, feeling an almost physical connection to the father he had lost so early. Thank you, Mom, for this, for everything. They remained there, under the starry sky of Willow Creek, mother and son reunited after a journey of separation and reunion. In New York City, Tech Global continued to prosper, now with a new corporate philosophy that valued not only profit, but social impact. Throughout the country, Leo and Rachel's story had touched hearts, reminding people of the importance of roots, family and gratitude. And there in that simple backyard, under the same mango tree that had shaded his childhood, Leo finally understood the most valuable lesson his parents had tried to teach him. True success is not measured by bank accounts or pompous titles, but by the ability to remain true to oneself, to one's origins, and to those who truly matter. Looking at his mother, whose serene face reflected the peace of someone who finally sees a cycle complete, Leo knew that he had found at last his true home, not in luxurious penthouses or meeting rooms, but in the hearts of those who loved him unconditionally, and in his own heart, now free from the weight of unrestrained ambition, and once again capable of feeling the simplicity and depth of true love. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope Leo and Rachel's story has deeply touched your hearts. For more emotional narratives like this, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating American stories. Find it here by clicking to the left of the screen. If this journey of redemption and family reconnection moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Daily, we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the beauty of human relationships. Share in the comments situations where you also needed to revisit your roots to find your true path. We look forward to reading your stories.